So that is just a brief recap. We have done this Hicksian substitution effect. Price of commodity acts declines for the normal good. And then we discuss about the demand curve of Hicksian and also the uncompensated. Then we discuss the price of commodity acts is increasing for the normal good. Price of commodity Y declines for the normal good. And price of commodity Y increases for the normal good. Okay. And then we discuss the cases of inferior good and the given good. So the price of commodity X declines for the inferior good year and the price of commodity X declines for the given good year. Okay, so those cases for the commodity Y, I just asked to you to give me. Okay, now coming up to this Slutsky part. So you do not have any doubt in this, what we discussed yesterday. Yes, guys. So now I can proceed with this Slutsky. So first of all, we need to understand what is exactly the differences between, the Hicksian substitution effect and this Slutsky substitution effect. See, in case of Hicks, I'm going back to this normal case. That is the price of commodity acts declines in a normal good. So we started from here. Okay, that was a black budget line, which is the initial budget line, where the consumer is on at the initial position. Okay, so that is the initial level of consumption. This is the community or the indifference curve. Okay, so this is indicating, initial consumption bundle. Similarly, the same position you would find in case of Slutsky. And when there is a change in the price, okay, the price is declining and it is shifting a rightward. Fine. So if it is shifting rightward, then it shows that the commodity X price is declining. Now, taking a new price line, you are taking a pivot of it. Okay. So we take a green line again, and that is a pivot. It means a new price line. And you're coming from E1 to E2, which is actually your substitution effect. Okay. Now you just, recall all the situations again. We have this budget line, we have this initial position, then we shifted to like this, and then we got a pivot on E2. Okay, now just remember all these points, and I'm coming back to this Slutsky analysis. Now see here, we have a same way, same case, X commodities prices declining for a normal good. And we have here the price line, which is an initial price line, that is a black price line. And we have this blue indifference curve, which has, the initial position of consumption. Okay. So that is similar what we have seen in case of Ixian. And then another thing, you can see this green line also. This green line has a rightward shift as we have seen there because X commodities price is declining. And the same way you are taking a P word. Okay. But see what is the difference. The difference, first difference would occur here. This pivot line is intersecting this point of E1, fine? Whereas in case of Hicksian substitution effect, this was not intersecting. I'm going back to Hicksian 1. See, this green line is not intersecting this point. This is just having a tendency at E2 point. So similarly, when you go for the Slutsky analysis, then what happens? Here you are getting an intersection at E1 point and then will have a tangency at E2 point on another indifference curve. That is another blue indifference curve. And in that case, there was the single indifference curve where the substitution effect is taking place. And in case of substitution effect of Slutsky, the substitution effect is taking place on higher indifference curve. So two differences, I think you could observe. The one difference, this is the intersection which is taking place over here. And another difference is the movement from E1 to E2, your substitution effect is taking place on a different indifference curve. Now, what does it mean? The intersection when it take place, from E1 point, that shows that on the new price line or the new budget line, your initial consumption bundle is also attainable. It means if consumer would like to, remain on the same even point, then consumer has a liberty to be there. But in case of Hicksian substitution effect, as it is not intersected by this line or pivot, this initial consumption bundle is not attainable in case of Hicksian substitution effect. So this is only attainable when you're talking about Slutsky substitution effect. Okay. And then from E1 to E2, whenever the consumer would like to substitute, the consumer is always reach on the higher level of utility because they feel their real income is enhancing. Though this is not talking about any real income effect. Okay. The real income effect is only this, from E2 to E3. That is the only real income effect. And from E1 to E3, that is the same. This is your price effect. Okay, as similar as we discussed in case of Hicksian substitution effect. But the only thing is that what we are trying to examine from two different indifference curves over here, and that's what from E1 to E2, the shift which is getting occurred, that is just because of the different indifference curve. This is the existence of those because we want to show that the utility in this case would not remain constant. Okay, so because of the movement from one indifference curve to the other indifference curve, from E1 to E2 there is a jump, and then we show that the consumer, by substituting the goods, like if they are consuming more of X, by substituting this Y, they're actually reaching on high welfare level. Okay, so this shows that the consumer would not remain on same utility curve. So these are the two major differences between this Hicksian and substitution effect. The rest things you would find that is similar. You can also take a case over here. The price of commodity access increases. In that case, the pivot would, oh sorry, this the green line would come this direction. Okay, and the pivot would come in this direction. And similarly, you would see the case of X increases. Okay, I have already drawn this case. The case of X commodity price is increasing for the normal good. Now see, the reverse case says what? We have here this initial budget line, and we are here somewhere for initial consumption. Okay, then price line is changing. That is a green price line. This indicates that the X commodities price is now increasing. Okay. So what this consumer will do, first of all, this consumers will take this pivot, the green line again, which shows that the same price lines you are taking. And then this is intersecting through this even point. Okay. Now, whenever the intersection is taking place, we know that even is attainable for this consumer, and then the consumer would move for E1 to E2 position, that is a substitution effect. So from E1 to E2, it means the consumer is coming from this to this direction. Okay, this shows that the consumer would like to substitute the commodity X for commodity Y, because relatively the commodity Y is now less expensive, so X would now be substituted for this commodity Y. And here, by doing this, the consumer is reaching on higher level of utility. And we say that the utility would not remain constant in that case. So as consumer would reach here, the consumer would realize that because of the increase in price of X has reduced their real income. And that is why this consumer is coming down at E3 position. Okay, so that is a lower indifference curve. So this is about a Slutsky analysis for the case of commodity X. You can even draw the similar cases for the commodity Y. Now we'll talk about the compensatory variation in income. Okay, the compensatory variation in income says that uh, exactly whatever you studied in case of Hicksian substitution effect. This is the same case. Okay, it's almost same case, even it is entirely same case, exactly similar. Here we have a black line, we have a new price line. Okay, then we got a pivot. There is an initial bundle which is not intersected by this pivot, and we have a tangency here. Okay, so from E1 to E2, you got in substitution effect, which is moving in this direction as we are taking the case price of access declining. Okay, so this case is price of access declining. Now this is happening, and from E2, okay, consumer would move to E3 because their real income is increasing. Now, I would say that this portion, okay, this portion, the gap, what we have, this is the compensatory variation in income. Okay, that is what the compensatory variation in income. Now, why do you use this word compensatory variation in income. First of all, in layman language, I would make you understand that if consumer would shuffle from E2 to E3, of course there is an income effect and ICC curve would come. But according to this compensatory variation, because the consumer's real income is rising, their pocket, will have now more money. Okay, additional money, extra, because our budget constraint says their income is limited. So if they would have, the more income, then what happens? This portion of the income will again, will be taken back from these consumers, and the consumer would come back from E3 to E2. It means now you're again taking back this money, which is now additional, to them in their pocket. So from E2 to E3, which is a rise in the income for the consumer, you're taking it back. Now, why you would like to take it back? Basically, the compensative variation is the adjustments in income that returns the consumer to the original utility after economic change has occurred. Okay, so this is the economic change which has occurred, okay, which is the change in the price line, and the prices are declining. And because prices are declining, the real income is increasing. So this change has occurred, and now from E3 to the consumer has to come down. See, that is why only the Hicksian analysis says that the utility would always remain constant. Okay, so we exactly don't move from E2 to E3. Uh, though we do study, conceptually all points, E1, E2, E3, but the, fundamentals of Hicksian says that it is taking place only from E1 to E2. So if you reach here for a while, you are coming back to the point of E2. In other words, the compensative variation in income is what? It's a government action or a policy. If I would say the prices are going down for the economy for those sections who are the marginalized one, and for them they are making a rationing, public distribution services are there, and also public welfare what they are making, and because of that some of the people may feel their real income is more, but at the same time because the income is more, the government would impose the taxes other side. Okay, so whosoever is feeling the more income in their pocket, they're taking back this money because their relative income is imposed another taxation from the government other side. Or would say income, if it is rising, the government follows a progressive taxation. So whenever his income is rising, at the same time you have to pay taxes. Like a very good example, those who are in the those who are the salaried people, okay, they are getting DAs also, dearance allowances every time, every 6 months by the government. Okay, now what happens every time when the dearance allowances is added to your basic income, then this give you a percentage rise in your income. So at the same time when there is the income which is rising, that same time the government policy which has already have been implemented by the government, that is a progressive taxation. So this is taking back this additional money which has been given to you, that is what dearance allowances. So it's not like that whatever you are getting, that is always in your pocket. It's just a feel or psychological phenomena that the people would feel that their income is rising. But the compensative variation is what the government is trying to compensate again. So here, if you're feeling that your real income is rising, the government would impose the taxes and your pocket would remain, with the same level of income. So that's why your utility would remain same. You can even get a reverse case of it. The reverse case of it, I would go back to this Hicksian substitution effect for the reverse case when the price of commodity axis increasing. So see from this to this, there is again compensative variation, but the direction of compensative variation would be this. Now exactly what is happening? Here the consumer is here at the E2 point, and from E2 point they are reaching to this E3 point. Their real income is declining. Okay, so whenever there is the field of real income is declining, like what we have today, the COVID-19 and such pandemic is going on in the world economy, so every country is trying to increase or compensate the real income which is declining of a consumer. So why, the real income is declining? Because people are not getting businesses, the people are losing their jobs also. So they are, providing other measures, they are following other measures to enhance the real income. Like at the same time, there is the operations of the MG Narega is going on, okay, and the government is also at the same time, uh, uh, coming up with the new recruitments too. And there are other policy implementations like rationing. We can talk about, they are, enhancing even the goods supply, services supply towards this rationing and the public distribution services on free cost. And There are some other measures like monetary measures and fiscal measures too. So these, the shifting from E2 to E3 is definitely a loss, but the government is trying to fulfill this loss from E2 to E3 and would make you again, a better off position. And that is, they'll give you income in some other way, okay, some other measures also. So from E3 to E2, you will again reach, and that is, the position of same utility level where the consumer would like to be as per the Hicksian analysis. So this is again, the gap which you can see here. This is the compensatory variation in income. I hope this compensatory variation in income is clear to you. Yes, everyone. If you have still doubt, you can ask me. Yes, everyone. Shivani, I cannot hear you guys.
Understood. I
Understood.
understood.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. Fine. So let me proceed now for equivalent variation in income. For equivalent variation in income, because we haven't done it yet, so I'm just taking a reference of this compensatory variation in income of it. So for equivalent variation in income is also, we will be taking, this black line, which is an initial budget line. Okay, this initial budget line again indicates what we have in E1, which is the initial point of consumption. Okay, this blue is the initial level of indifference curve. So consumer is somewhere here. Okay, now see one thing. The equivalent variation in income. This is the equivalent. Let me correct it. This is E. This, this area or the gap, when you do talk about this area, this black and this green one, okay, this gap is the equivalent variation in income. So you can even raise it more, raise it more, and put this to beta, okay, and this gives you equivalent variation in income. Fine. So coming back to this. Now, first of all, I'll make you understand what is this. The equivalent variation is the adjustments in the income that changes the consumer's utility equals to the level that would occur if the event had happened. So here, the first thing which is very important, the first thing that the income you are adjusting first, fine. So income effect would take place first, and then only the prices would change in the economy. So the price effect would come, after this income effect. See the previous case, the first effect which is taking place, that is what the change in price, and then you are taking pivot of it, and that's why there is a compensatory variation in income. But the equivalent variation in income is the first there is a budget line, okay, and then you are taking just a pivot of it, okay. It means on initial prices, on the initial budget line, what income you required more to be a well off, or to get a well off situation in the economy. And then after, if there is any change in the economy, how would you survive on the same utility curve? So it means any change whenever would happen which you are predicting for the future, like we also don't know what will happen in the present scenario, and we can't predict the future also. So in that case, the people would like to increase their income so that they can survive on this particular utility curve or the given changes in the prices. Fine, the given changes in the prices which may happen in the future too. So that is just a prediction, and that's why you would like to, increase, or you want to be well off by adjusting your level of income. So see, your initial price line is this black one, where your initial consumption bundle it is E1, and you're taking a pivot of it. Okay, you're just taking a pivot of it. It means the same price line. Your price lines are not changed. It is constant one. Fine, and you're reaching on the higher level of indifference curve. The reason behind it, you're just adjusting your income. You're adjusting your income probably to reduce it, to consume more it, or maybe because the prices of it is higher, or you are feeling that on this particular budget line. Okay, so there is no change which is occurring whether in Y or X, but you want to make adjustments in your consumption level like this, and that's why this ICC curve is coming this way. And the shift of a consumer from E1 to E2 definitely is consumption is increasing even for both commodity X and commodity Y, and he is at the higher level of welfare. Now, after this, the price lines would change. Okay, you are now facing this new price line. This new price line is, with respect to X commodity, the prices are declining now, and then the consumer would shuffle for more substitution. The reason, because now X commodity price is declining, is substitution effect will take place as law of demand allows this thing. So that's why from E2 to E3, you would come down. Okay, so more of X now would like to, consume, and the less of X. So this effect from E1 to E2, you would call that that is the income consumption curve, and from E1 to E3, you call it price effect curve. So see, from this E1 to E2, if you see here, that is the income effect, and from this point to this point, that is the price effect. Now, the important thing is to remember the first thing which is happening over here, that is the prices would remain constant. Okay, then income effect is taking place, and then further the prices would change, and then substitution effect is taking place. Okay, in this case, the prices are changing first, but your utility would remain constant, and after that only your real income or the income effect would be visible through this ICC curve. So these things are very important. This is just a theoretical analysis to understand this compensatory variation in income and the equivalent variation in income. In layman language, why we follow this compensatory variation in income? It means whenever we do feel our income is rising or our income is reducing because of any change in the economy is taking place, then the government or any policy action or any such thing which may happen in the society would compensate you to the, your initial situation or your level of substitution, or the same utility curve, what you can call it. But in equivalent variation in income, the adjustments are taking place in the income to make you well off, for the future where the economy would bring some changes. Okay, and that is just a prediction and a future aspect. So you just want to see, you want to look at your income level, and you want to do adjustments looking at the, future changes in the economy. So just offset those effects. You would like to do something by today. So that's why equivalent variation in income is taking place. So how much money you would require to be well off on a particular position, that is just we call equivalent variation in income. So sometimes it is just a reverse case also. It's not always that your equivalent variation in income move in this direction. This may come this direction also, which is a leftward one, and your price lines, it's not always the case whenever it is increasing or decreasing. It's always it's sometimes increasing also. So both the cases have reverse cases too, and that you would understand more by, the mathematical applications of it. So first, if you have any doubt in the theoretical analysis of it, you please ask. Yes, if you have any doubt in this, or you don't have any doubt, so that I can proceed. Yes, students, is this understood? Okay, so let me proceed now. See, we can understand this CV and EV concept by the example. Suppose that a consumer has a utility function and we have this utility function, fine. So the utility function is given to us, and we know that from the utility function how to get a demand function. So I hope you all, if it is given to you, the utility of x1 and x2, which we have the Cobb-Douglas utilities, and you can derive the demand function from your uncompensated demand function derivation. Okay, so here we have the originally prices, that is 1 is to 1. It means price of x1 is 1 and price of x2 is also 1. And the consumer has income, that is 100. Okay, then the price of good 1 increases to good 2. So here this vector would change because this 1 is now converting into the 2. So we have original vector, that is 1 is to 1, and the new vector, that is 2 is to 1. So what are the compensating and equivalent variations in income? So we can calculate it by given this, mathematical application. So how we need to calculate? I'm just giving you an idea about it. So we'll go to this. First of all, we need to calculate the demand functions. And I hope you all know how to calculate it. Okay, you'll go with the Lagrangian function. Okay, so taking a utility as a variable and then the constant you will store in the lambda, and by taking three orders, first order conditions of a three equations, and you'll be getting this demand function. So we got this demand function m by 2p1 and x2 is equals to m by 2p2. So by using this, we see that the consumer's demand is changing from, see how this is changing from, our income is 100, fine. So our total income is 100. So if I do follow x1 star and x2 star, that is an optimal bundle, okay, or initial bundle, sorry, that is an original bundle. So original bundle says that if I would have, the 100 income, then 50 I'm spending on x1 and 50 I'm spending on x2. Similarly, if my vector would change, the price vector if would change, because x1 price is now increasing too, and this x2 I would also write, but otherwise this x2 is similar. So entire vector is changed, but only the change is taking place that is in x1. So because of that, the 50 is now reduced to 25 because the price of x1 is now increased, and this 50 would remain same. Now, because of this is happening, how would you calculate the CV, which is the compensatory variation in income? Now we have here, the fundamentals has to be followed here. The fundamental which we studied in case of theoretical analysis. Now, first of all, the compensative variation says what? Compensative variation says that whenever there is a change in prices, okay, here the price is changing, prices are increasing, okay, the price of x1 is increasing. So in that case, I would go diagram of the increase, compensatory variation in income. Let me go to this case. Okay, now what's happening here? See, as price is increasing, your budget line would shift this direction. You are moving from E1 to E2, and then you further move to E3. But your compensative variation says that you are coming from E3 to E2 back. Okay, that is your compensative variation in income. So this diagram you will be following here because the price of X1 is increasing in this case, and the same way you will draw the diagram of this. Now, if this is the case, when the consumer is coming from E3 to E2 back, it means the consumer would remain on the same utility. Or in another words, I would say that if your real income is declining, you are getting a loss in your real income, how your income would be compensated by the government so that you can reach on the same level of satisfaction. Okay, it means what we have the present situation. If the government measures are, giving and offset the entire situation, it means that is the effect after the lockdown E2 to E3. So if it is happening and the government is able to offset this effect E3 to E2, and the consumer would come back, the original level of utility the consumers were in the month of January or Feb. Okay, so that is our analysis. So here the utility of a consumer would remain constant. So you just remember this particular conceptual part, and we will implement this thing in our application part. So in application part, it says that if this m by 2 multiplied by 2, this is what I'm just substituting in this equation my all information. M is what? 100, 2 multiply by 1 if I do follow initial bundle. Okay. M again here what? 100, 2 multiply by 1 if I follow initial bundle. If I follow new bundle, okay, or the economic change or the price change, then 2 multiply by 2 would be here and 2 multiply by 1 would be here. So the same way, I'm taking the utility function. I need to substitute this x1 value and x2 value in the original utility function, which is x1's power half and x2 power half. So the same thing I have done. This is the value of x1. This is the value of x2. And I put it. You see here, the economy is changing by changing its prices of commodity x1. Okay. So now prices of commodity x1 is increasing and your utility function would be like this. Now, if it is CV, okay, the government measures should go in that way when the whole utility function would now be equals to when the utility would remain constant. You see, whatever efforts the government will do to offset your loss in income, that should be equivalent to, this utility remain constant. It means this is the position of E3 and the government is bringing you back on the E2. So it means same utility. Same utility, it means this is 100, 2 multiplied by 1, the same prices, and 2 multiplied by 1 also here. And this utility bundle would be this. Now this M I'm not replacing. The reason behind it, how much money government has to give, to offset this effect of a loss in income. So this M we need to discover. So that's why this M is similarly I'm keeping over here. So I just simplify this whole process and this gives you M is equals to 100 root 2. And if you simplify it, this is giving you 141, the whole income. And 141, the total income the government has to, or the consumer is requiring this much of, the income to reach on the level of E2. So 141 minus 100, how much government has to incorporate? That is a 41 or the dollar 41. It's an additional money which is, required by a government to do an intervention for this consumer whenever there is a price change in the economy is taking place. Is that clear, you guys? Hmm? Shivani, you're not audible to me. Can you come louder?
Ma'am, the last portion 100 root 2 equal 141. This one can you
This the root 2 value is what? 1.41. Okay. So 100 multiplied by 1.41, this gives you 141. So this is a total income which you need, the consumer to make them, reach on the same level of utility. But 141, the initial income you will subtract. Okay. So what is an additional income which the government has to put an effort into the economy? So that is rupees 41 or dollar 41.
okay.
Okay. Is that clear? Should I proceed for EV?
मैम
Hmm.
मैम
Yes.
मैम मैम बट हम टेक्निकली देखें तो मैम हमें एडिशनल
Hmm.
50 रुपीज़ की ज़रूरत होगी ना सेम
Hmm.
लेवल ऑफ सेटिस्फेक्शन पे पहुंचने के लिए
See,
बिफोर
here actually consumer is doing a relative analysis. It's not an absolute analysis. First of all, this thing you need to, this indifference curve is not a util analysis. The indifference curve is a subjective analysis, which was given by Hickson Allen over and above cardinal utility, and that's why we do follow ordinal utility as more subjective. So we cannot measure it exactly. What do you want? Okay. तो हम ये नहीं
ओके मैम
कहेंगे कि 50 कम हुआ तो 50 चाहिए. एग्जैक्टली क्या हो रहा है कि आपने सब्स्टिट्यूट कितना किया और सब्स्टिट्यूट करने के बाद आप उसी लेवल ऑफ यूटिलिटी पे रहना चाहते हो. बिकॉज सी लुक एट दिस डायग्राम अगेन. दिस डायग्राम इज नॉट मेक यू रीच हियर. Sorry, here. Okay. This diagram of the government policy is not, make you reach from E3 to E1. This is allowing you to reach on E2, not E1, because your initial consumption bundle is not attainable according to our concept. So this you need to forget. So it means you are still substituting, okay, this commodity X1, and you are consuming more of Y. So this is happening. Fine. So that you need to take into the account. It's not always same. It is just a relative analysis. It's not an absolute analysis. Got it?